We're here again. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm so excited. I'll get my there it is, my logo back up in the corner. Christopher, you just helped me figure out StreamYard, which is kind of fun. So, friends, we're back to talk with yet another member of the Content and Connection Club. I've got Christopher Johnson here. Christopher and I now have an interesting interwoven story, which will sort of untangle about how we got to know each other, and now we work together in a number of different ways, including as colleagues and in a coachee relationship. And I'm a huge fan of what he's doing. So this is your chance, dear viewer, to find out more about the Content and Connection Club and how we are supporting both budding and established entrepreneurs on their journey into 2023 for a mere $25 a month. I'll tell you later why it's so low. Christopher, welcome to the program.
Greetings, Robbie Samuels. How the heck are you?
I'm good. This is my penultimate live for 2023, and I'm just using it as an excuse to say the word penultimate. Tomorrow, I'll be interviewing the Dorothy Wilhelm. So that is the way you don't do anything for the rest of the year after that. You close up shop. So we're looking forward to that as well.
Wow. All right. Yeah. She is the Dorothy Wilhelm. Yes.
She is. I know we're doing promo on your show for her show. I think she'll appreciate this.
Well, all right. Yeah, because it's required. She's Dorothy.
She's Dorothy. So folks who don't know, Dorothy is in her late 80s, closing in on 80. Her 89th birthday is January 2nd. She was born January 2nd, 1934, which is easy to remember. 1, 2, 3, 4. Who else has that birthday? That's pretty cool. And she's a very active member of the community, and she's got multiple businesses and podcasts, and I can't count how many books.
And yeah.
So, Christopher, how are you doing today?
I am having a wonderful, wonderful day because it's a wonderful time of year. Well, all right. All the year is a wonderful time of year.
You're going to start singing. So,
No.
how did you and I feel like you've been part of my life for such a long time, but that's actually not the case. It's only been since last year. So how did you first sort of stumble into my orbit?
All right. So during 2020, long ago, I was part of an accountability lab. We met at 6:30 in the morning, and this lab was put together by Jan Griffiths. It was a way to set up your day, and it was on Zoom. And toward the end of the year, it's like I started seeing opportunities to help people with Zoom. And one of the members of that accountability lab, Diane Darling, suggested go to Robbie's 5% or No More Bad Zoom on Friday night is free. It's like
free, can't beat that.
And I did. And it's like, wow, this is really engaging. I liked the community right away.
I actually think I went back and looked. I think it was November of 2020 when you first signed up. And then soon after, I announced that I would be running again the 5% Advantage program, which was this 4-week intensive experiential certification program that gave you the opportunity to earn the certified virtual event professional #NoMoreBadZoom designation. And so you went from being sort of a participant in this Friday weekly gathering that I started hosting on March 13th, 2020, having no idea it would become a business. But then you opted into this much more intensive program. Is this because you really had an inkling that you had a business plan?
I didn't have a business plan, but I had a client.
Yeah, that's good. Which a lot of people have the business plan without a client. So your method seems better. Yeah.
Someone asked me, hey, can you run this conference for us? And I said, yes. And then it was, all right, let's see how to do that. So I signed up for the 5% Advantage program and learned a lot and figured out, gee, there's still a lot more to learn. That event went off really wonderfully, no problems. And they signed up and I've worked with them now repeatedly.
Nice. And Zoom has changed dramatically even since then from early 2021. Um,
Absolutely.
and you and I are always experimenting and trying to figure out what the new features are and whether or not they're useful or what the use cases might be. You and I, in a lot of ways, could be seen as competitors. I want to sort of address that because I feel like this is one of the things that comes up is we are not exclusive in the club, in the sense of like there's only one person who does one thing. Like, I can name a few people who are in the community that are Zoom producers. I've trained all of them. So I know they're good Zoom producers as well. And some of them, like yourself, I subcontract work to. But by no means are we competitors. And maybe you could speak to that a little bit. Like, what is it like to be in that kind of space and be learning and growing?
So that is one of the fun things about the Content and Connection Club. It's a place where we can play. The newest features, the case or use case scenarios, the whys, in addition to the how.
Mhm.
Um, the people in the club are from a variety of backgrounds. So my background before Zoom, I worked in IT. Now my degree is in broadcasting. So let's see, broadcasting, IT, and with IT, that was training and development of software. Okay, all that is captured in Zoom.
Yeah, really
How
well.
do people do this? It's like, all right, how do you set up the software to do what you want it to do? And in the club, we go over the why.
Hmm.
So with the variety of people in there from all different walks of life and at all different, most of them are entrepreneurial.
Hmm.
How they look at the problem is different than how I look at the problem.
Hmm.
I like helping people solve IT and broadcasting and Zoom problems.
Yeah.
So,
And even early on, I was helping you think about like who your target market was going to be, because and even we just had a call the other day where we were talking about that. It was yesterday. And I was saying, oh, here's a whole new market that I've thought about, but I don't have time to pursue. Like, what do you want to do with that? So, I mean, I think it's collaborative in that sense. And then, of course, I've also subcontracted work to you, which has helped my business grow without me being stressed out. I've actually had some time off, more than just 2 days, which is what happened in 2020. Speaking of the club specifically, when it was first proposed that we move from this free weekly no more bad Zoom virtual happy hour, which I'll throw that link up. So this is still free. It's available on the first Friday of the month for anyone who wants to drop in. It's not specifically entrepreneurial, although we bring in guest speakers who are speaking about business strategy. So if you've got even like a side hustle idea, this is a good space for you. I think you get to enjoy the company of people. It's good networking, really supportive. We do wins. We have a chance to network in different breakout rooms and such. But then when I switched over to the other Fridays were going to be Content and Connection Club. What was for you important about that? Like, how did that help you think about what you might like participating in that might help you do X?
participating in the weekly Content and Connection allows me a chance again to play and look at business problems that I didn't know I had.
Mm.
It's like, all right, figuring out the nuts and bolts, the tech of Zoom, got it covered. We can experiment. You and I, it's like, wait a second, did you do okay? How different people are running their businesses, and where I'm at on my entrepreneurial journey, I'm one of the newer entrepreneurs. Uh, Other people are like, oh yeah, we've already solved that problem.
Right.
That's just an easy this. Wait a second, I don't have to spin my wheels. No, just do this.
Yeah. Is there
Having those
something?
conversations.
Was there something in particular that you learned either from me or from one of the conversations, maybe in a breakout room or maybe a
Um,
one-on-one call with a club member that stands out?
Picking out just one. See, that's the challenge. Discussions regarding lead magnets. Like
Mm,
before, what's a lead magnet? Oh, all right. And so understanding that structure and process, and we spent a while talking about various aspects of that, how to set one up, and the what it means to have one set up. Additionally, conversations about CRMs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we've had discussions of, all right, do you need a CRM, or do
Right.
you just need a method to keep track of what you're supposed to be doing and somehow to do? I mean, because hey, here's a secret of IT: the world runs on spreadsheets.
Let's actually take a moment to share with folks. There's 3 aspects of the club. So again, for $25 a month, you get access to tons of content that I've created, courses, content that you should dive deeper into when you need it. So it's meant to not just like distract you from whatever you're currently working on, but to be available to you when you need it. And it's content on Zoom strategy. So there's 70 plus videos on that, both technical aspects, but also strategically thinking about how to use Zoom. There's content about business strategy and how do you build a list of likely prospects and how do you do research calls and all of that good stuff. And there's resources around networking, um, virtually and in person. And
Mhm.
then there's an online forum, which has been kind of quiet, but we're going to bring it back a little bit next year, where people get to share introductions as far as what are the referrals they are seeking. I think that's a really good way to introduce yourself to a community. Say, this is the kind of people, these are the people I serve and how I can best help them. You can share your wins. You can share your accountability posts. You can ask questions. Like, I know there's this document somewhere and like, I'm looking for it. You can share resources you've come across that have been helpful for your business. It's all been really, really helpful. I think every post that's been in there has been really helpful. Probably the best resource of this is that you get to meet with me and this amazing community on every Friday. The first Friday of the month, again, is the free No More Bad Zoom virtual happy hour. But the club Zooms are run as masterminds, right, Christopher? So we have
Yeah.
somewhere between 8 and 12 people most of the time. I'm going to do a push for the end of the year party so that we have probably like 30. But we have 8 to 12 people, a lot of regular attendees, and I share something sort of a behind the scenes about my business in the first 10 to 20 minutes, depending on how into it people are. I remember one thing that stood out was I shared a list of, I track all the expenses, the reoccurring monthly annual expenses on a chart. And I was explaining how by doing that and noting on that spreadsheet, a Google Sheet, what the coding was for my bookkeeping, my assistant could more easily like keep track of my receipts for me and all that, which was a huge time saver for me to have that. But it also means I can add that all up and really have a very clear sense of where's my money going? And do I use that anymore? Should I delete that? I'm about to review it again because it's that time of year where I'm like, you know what? Let's think about what I'm using next year. And I gave people a template so they can create their own. And that's, if you're a new business owner and even an established business owner, you may not have thought to do it. Super easy, doesn't cost you anything. A little bit of time could make your team more efficient, could make you save some money. So we have that. And then we get into wins where we get to share wins in small breakout rooms. And then we have people just raise their hand and ask questions in a mastermind format. And it's amazing how open and abundant people are about sharing what's working for them, what's challenging them. It's been a
It's,
cool experience.
it is. I mean, the group is made up of people with an abundance mindset,
Yes.
and it's a safe space to share and receive feedback. I mean, that's the mastermind aspect of it.
Right.
Um, a presentation, there was a presentation you were working on recently. It's like, hey, and you were able to rejigger that.
Oh my gosh, I got so much feedback. I put myself in the hot seat. I wanted to demonstrate what it's like to put yourself in the hot seat. I was really rushing through the presentation. I was all nervous about it. I don't know why. It was new. It wasn't new content, but it was. I don't use I don't use slides very often. So and I had worked hard on these slides, but the feedback I got about how to build the slides and the pausing and I was just I felt it was it was like getting a chance to trial this in a safe place. And now people are complimenting me on I had a presentation skills expert write me on LinkedIn and tell me how wonderful they thought my presentation was. And I was like, wow, that's thanks to the club, their
E-
feedback.
Exactly. And it makes me, or it gives me a chance. It's like, oh, all right. I can incorporate some of that into something I have coming up. Another aspect is all right, between all the members in the club, we can cover a whole lot of different areas of online virtual events.
Mm-hmm.
So, what did you see? What, you know, was there anything that stood out that made you go, "Wow, how did they do that?" Or it's like, "Ooh." uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
We were talking that with James earlier this week on a live about he wants me to more formally bring that in as a regular aspect, like the highlights and bloopers reel, where we get to talk about what was wonderful and what we're like, ooh, let's talk about how to avoid that happening again.
yeah,
There's some
and
mistakes that were forgivable and almost expected in the beginning of the pandemic that are really cringeworthy when they're happening now. But people don't know that they're easy to fix. So it's great that we're here to sort of talk about that amongst ourselves and improve that.
exactly, and, it's a warm, welcoming environment. I've actually met one of the members in person.
Yes, that's right. Give her a shout out,
Uh, Gina Gina Carey, well, all right,
Queen.
officially Regina Carey,
Yes.
an amazing individual. I met her at TEDx Detroit this past October. She was there in person. I was working behind the scenes,
Mhm.
and it's like, wow, wait a second. I know you from the internet.
Wow, that's so cool. I was hoping that would one day. I knew it's a big state, but I knew that maybe there'd be a reason for you to cross paths in person. I mean, that's what's really great is the friendships that have formed. I mentioned to my wife that I was going to host something, and I was like, "Oh, I'm still hosting December 30th. Um, we're going to do a club sort of end of year experience." And she said, "Listen, you've hosted on Christmas and New Year's in previous years, so I assumed you were hosting on the 30th." Yeah, Christmas 2020. That was actually a lot of fun. I mean, it was a small group, but it was people who wanted to be there, and we had nowhere else to go that year. So this
Yeah,
is this is the family we've created online.
it's the connection, and it is
Yeah.
not. So one of the conversations I had this week on Zoom is virtual platforms are not like an arm's length distance. You can have a honest to goodness connection with the person if you allow the space for that,
Right.
and the club does.
Mhm. In a lot of ways, it's demonstrating what's possible by just doing it. And then if people want to create that, because we have coaches and consultants and speakers and authors and podcast hosts and people who want to be any or all of those things in the club. And so they can apply this host sort of mentality, this welcoming, how do you create a welcoming experience? They can apply that to lots of different avenues, whether it's a group coaching or they're running an online workshop or even hosting a podcast and thinking about, how do I make sure I'm looking at the camera if it's a video cast? So, is there something in particular you're looking forward to this coming year for your business? Like, what's sort of on the horizon for you?
So on the horizon, let's see, as we go into 2023, my word is process. So uh, going from reinventing the wheel every time it's like, all right, how do you do this again? Just making sure that I have a process. And so I'm going to rely uh, on the club from the aspect of it's like, all right, everyone in there knows something that I don't. That's where I start.
Hmm.
And uh, it's a sharing, welcoming environment. So when I come to the club, this safe environment, and say, hey, is there a way to do this? And then we will have a discussion. So recently, Trello versus Asana versus a spreadsheet versus it's like, huh. And just helping organize that chain of or that train of thought. That's going to be my process for 2023.
Even just having a space where you could ask those kinds of questions, I'm realizing the value of like there are people in the group who don't know what Trello or Asana. I mean, there might be people watching this that never heard of those, or they've heard of it, but they're not quite sure how it would be useful. And why is it better than a spreadsheet? I already know how to use a spreadsheet. So, and there are people in the group who are very well versed in how to use these tools. So they can step up and talk about how they're using it, and then you get to learn, oh, in that case, maybe it would be helpful, or no, I don't really need that. No, I can let it go. Stop worrying about whether it's officially a business if I don't have, if I'm not paying for anything, is it still a business? Like, yes, as long as you have paying clients. But then no one in the group is specifically trying to sell a particular tool, or like they're not, there's no right or one way to particularly do something, but
No,
it's a chance to have that conversation and talk about what's working. So I
exactly.
love this space. I want to mention before we go off air why it's only $25 a month, when clearly it could be 10 times that and still be a bargain. Because you're getting, I mean, all that content, which, even my book launch strategies masterclass, which it's an hour and a half video and 25 pages of detailed notes explaining precisely how I twice self-published a book that had 150 reviews within a week of the launch date, and reached #1 in multiple paid categories, et cetera, et cetera. So, that is something I charge $150 for, but it's thrown in as one of the pieces of content you get access to, which maybe right now you don't need it, but when you knew, like when you're thinking, oh, I have a book coming out, you'll be like, Robbie's got a thing. Oh, I'll go look at it now. And that's the just in time learning, as opposed to the just in case learning that we're always espousing. But so you get all of that. And the reason it's so low is that this is the community, particularly the 2020 community, that helped me realize that I had the potential of a new business when my pre-pandemic business, which was focused on all in-person networking and networking at events and conferences, was basically shuttered. I spent over a decade working to be recognized as an expert in networking at events, and then no one needed that expertise. So this is the group that met with me weekly for 2.5+ years. By the end of that first year, I already had a thriving 6-figure business, and I wasn't charging for this weekly event. So now I wanted to give a little more, I don't know, thoughtfulness to who comes into the space. And the $25 is just to kind of, it's funny because Christopher, you're right. I think everyone in the club is entrepreneurial, but not everyone who was coming to the No More Bad Zoom was entrepreneurial. And for even a little dollar amount, there are people who opted to just come to them once a month because they're not building a business. They don't want to talk about lead magnets and CRMs. But for the people who that's what they want to have a space to do, I wanted to sort of draw them in and focus that conversation a little bit. And
Mhm.
it's been beautiful. So I think we have like 75 people right now in the club overall. And like any community, it's, you get out of it what you put into it. So the people who show up regularly, participate, post in the groups, ask questions, those people are going to get way more out and be giving back a lot more. So we're going to just keep working to entice people back into the fold. And half the money goes to charity, which is Feeding America. They're a charity that supports 200 food banks across the United States. I gave my first monthly donation to a local food bank on March 9th, 2020, when I realized that the world was basically all kinds of bad things were happening. And in May of 2020, I met someone from Feeding America, and they became a wonderful client. So I get to support their virtual and in-person events, and it's amazing. So that's my give back to them. So this is not a moneymaker for me. It is a community building aspect. I love these people. I hope anyone watching wants to come. Christopher, I will leave you the last word.
All right. So can I add a couple of things?
Yes.
And I see that my friend Paya has commented. All right. So Paya is an amazing, wonderful person. One of the things I wanted to mention is, so she made a presentation in the club,
Mm-hmm.
and it made me think, all right, so the presentation was about virtual assistants,
That's right.
but I didn't think I needed one at the time. That might be changing. But just going through that process, like, oh, so that is what a virtual assistant really is getting done. It's like, okay. And going through that thought process, it's like, okay, when you have things set up in a systemized, organized fashion, then it makes it really easy for someone to help you.
To step in.
Yeah. Um, and with Feeding America. So one of the things you touched on earlier is it's not a competition.
Right.
Building on that, By cooperating, by collaborating, you can take on larger events. I can take on larger events. I can say yes to something because, oh, I know who I can call if I need help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And vice versa. That bench strength has been so key. Pay is another person I have subcontracted work to. She's also my very long time, nearly 3-year virtual assistant. And here and getting a chance to learn from her about like how to think about hiring a virtual assistant. And honestly, the systems you set up to hire a virtual assistant and be ready for one will help you in the meantime, even if you don't have an assistant, being more organized, having a process, all of that. I thought it was really a very thoughtful presentation. And that's the
absolutely.
kinds of presentations we have on the first Friday of the month at No More Bad Zoom Virtual Happy Hour. In fact, the first Friday of January, I'm going to do a presentation based on some content from my second book, Small List, Big Results, that doesn't actually get talked about all that much, which is 12-week sprints and goal setting. So it seemed like January would be the right time of the year to focus a little bit on how do we thoughtfully map out all the big plans we have for the year. So I'm going to be sharing that the first Friday of the month. Again, I'll just share the link here. This is No More Bad Zoom Virtual Happy Hour. Anybody is welcome to come and be part of that. And then, of course, we want to make sure you all know how to get more information about No More Bad Zoom. .com and then contentandconnectionclub.com. So as we wave our way out of here, I will put up a screen telling you a little more information. We hope to see you there and help celebrate at the end of the year everything good that's happened in 2022 and beyond. Cheers, everyone.